Okay, so this takes me to the second part of the presentation, and I'm focusing here on a possible way, a possible process to engage stakeholders within a territory or within many territories that can be able to exchange in between themselves their experience and their struggles in design or implementation. And I propose this as a potential alternative way to govern a small scale of development. Because if we want, again, we need to go to the roots. We need to go to the micro level in order to influence more, in order to push more what we need to do as change for better, you know. Somebody posed a question about smart specialization to the artificial intelligence. It's very nice that when we don't have answers, we can ask other people, or we can ask AI. It's better to ask other people, because anyway, we arrive to the same conclusion as the ChatGPT arrived. And the ChatGPT mentions that the future of S3 is uncertain, and that the whole process is overly bureaucratic, and that it lacks effectiveness in its implementation. Okay, so this is big data, it's not subjectivity. But deep inside, we know that if we check our subjectivity, we arrive more or less to the same conclusions. We know this already. I am going also to quote Christian Soblon. You know, Christian Soblon was president of URADA director executive of URADA for over 25 years. And like Richard, they have an amazing experience in many decades in development, and they understand so many shades of the thinking about development that is really enriching to talk to them. The making of the strategy and its implementation are one. So first of all, we need to start by thinking that there is no design and implementation. There is the same. You cannot do the design of a strategy without implementing it immediately. And Christian is mentioning here the fact that copy-paste policies did not close the development gap. And we need tailor-made strategies that address place-based opportunities based on stakeholder data. It's that actors' intelligence, the stakeholders' data, is what happens in the minds of the people, the experience of the people, and then the vision and the priorities of these stakeholders. And it's not mentioned organizations, it's mentioned stakeholders, and perhaps partnerships between stakeholders, professionals that work every day in development. Again, going to the fact that there is no underlying process. When we look at PRI, for example, we understand what needs to happen, but we don't understand how to make it happen. It goes back to the stakeholders to make it happen, okay? And it's about the what, but we need to understand how to do it. I am providing here an image. The left side, the right side is very nice. Fish swimming together in harmony. But in the left side is this metaphor of in a book of facilitators, those facilitators that facilitate working groups of people that want to take decisions together. And you can see there that is starting really nice, okay? In the middle of where you have question marks, in the middle is what is called the groan zone, is the chaos zone. If you work with a group of development professionals, you cannot just go before that chaos zone. You need to allow for the difficult discussions to take place. You need to allow for the people to express divergent opinions, to quarrel if they need. But most of our development happens in the nice place, just a nice triangle before the chaos, just in the divergence area, the beginnings of the divergence. There is where we usually work in groups. There is where we take decisions. We don't arrive to feel uncomfortable among ourselves and go deeper into what is needed and what is needed to be changed. This name that we gave to these people that see the need to improve and that start moving, We call them first movers. Is a metaphor. I'm giving here an example from the equestrian world. I have sport horses, and I work with, and I spend my time with horses for more than 25 years. And I know that in the domain of horses, the leader is the one that manages to convince the other horses to move. Okay, so he is a mover or she is a mover. And of course, it's also a trust about it, because you need to trust the one that keeps you moving. Okay. Development, we all know this. Development is not a planned bureaucratic process. It's not. We know. Yes, we have bureaucracy going on in our jobs, in our organizations, but it's not the core of it. It's about learning process, about collaborating towards change for the better. So this is the development, working together, exchanging, building together. And it's a learning cycle. It never stops. You design, you implement, you go back, you assess. And this is this image is from an American expert in strategy. I mean, not expert. Nobody is expert in strategy. An analyst in strategies in the public area. Okay, so together with my colleague, Charles de Monchy, who is facilitator in the Netherlands, and also with a group of development practitioners and facilitators, we came up with an idea to streamline the complicated partnership process. And of course, we are not proposing to the professionals to take up more work. So anybody is not looking for more work, but we propose something that implies intervision, training, mutual assistance, because we believe that partnerships can achieve what organizations cannot. The way that we communicate with each other in between organizations, it supersedes the level of our organizations. It's us that are going to do the change. We propose a learning network, which builds on existing experience and peer-to-peer know-how, is demand-driven, so it's very much specific to who is in the room and who wants to do that change, either design or implementation of strategy. And it's strong on the job support, because people are exchanging in between them the experience, and they are supporting each other to get over obstacles and challenges. And the process, because we are proposing a process, it's a process. It's not a fixed, but it's an adaptable and flexible process. Imagine it as an horizontal line in between the vertical strategies that we have, S3, PRI, RRI, sector strategies, digitalization, and so on and so forth. Imagine this process as an horizontal one that can happen between professionals that belong to perhaps many verticals, or even many regions or countries. It can be imagined in many ways. And it works because it provides two kinds of support: the participatory techniques, and we are proposing a toolbook. It's a toolbook, again, that is refreshing itself all the time. It will be ready in March, and we will publish it. It will be an open source instrument. So it's a participatory technique, and this is, again, not linked to a specific type of strategy, but is linked to how to do it, how to design, how to implement. And also the second dimension of this process is the practical wisdom of the participants, okay? So what we empower each other to learn. Of course, that besides this, we also need to expand even more the way that we harvest the actors' intelligence or the stakeholders' intelligence. We go farther. Okay, so we are here in a group, but we also go outside and to check what is going on. And I put here just some principles on what this actors' intelligence implies, because it should not be chaotic. It should be well structured, but on the other side, it needs to have, and I put here, assuming a bold attitude towards actors' engagement. We don't need to shy away from asking as many stakeholders and as many citizens possible, because anyway we can channel that information in an efficient way towards strategy design and implementation. You don't have to read this because small letters, but it's just an example of how many, and you see here 10 steps, how many steps we used to engage stakeholders and citizens in the smart city strategy of Timișoara. We just finished it last year. It was the first strategy of this type of our city. But you can see here how complex we made this consultation with stakeholders and citizens, but still we were able to channel everything into the strategy, and it didn't go in many directions. Okay, so this learning networks process that we are talking about is, well, first one, step number one, creating the networks, designing strategies, third point, implementing, and then fourth point, any combination of design and implementation, because we can work with one group that some of the people are engaged in design, some other people are engaged in implementation. Well, this is an example from my work, because previously to this moment when I'm with my company, I was as well what we call a first mover. I was many times in pioneer initiatives, and I had to push other people to move, and also to, well, engage a lot of stakeholders. Okay, so just to wrap up and to conclude how it would work in practice. The group would go up to 10 people, let's say, and can be from many verticals, as I mentioned, and many nationalities as well. The ideal timing would be 12 months. And meanwhile, some meetings would happen on premise. So these bi-monthly meetings of 2-3 days all together, monthly online follow-up sessions, and these are also some practical things of how it could happen in practice. So actually, it's about managing, facilitating a learning cycle that is going on in real time for almost 1 year, and aims at solving with the people that are in the room very specific design and or implementation issues in their communities, in their regions. My colleague Charles Demonchi is with us online at this moment. Perhaps he would wish to say hi at some point. But anyway, I'm quoting him, saying that every meaningful change starts with a dialogue. Sometimes it's really, really important to leave aside what we already know, because we know a lot. But leave aside and go back to basics. Go back to, okay, where did we start in the first place when we said, okay, we need to change for the better our territories. Okay, the paradigm of development that we know as such, the linear path of development, is obsolete. Okay, well, it's time to go back to basics and try something else. I'm mentioning here that such a learning network would take time, save time in tackling the outstanding challenges of today, because we cannot plan for climate change in 10 years. We cannot spend 3 years in making a strategy for climate change. Support the transformative view of S3 and PRI, and accompany place-based change management. I must tell this because it's important. I spoke with Richard before this presentation many times, and I presented to him including this process, and he was very open to it, and he really believes that it can support a new type of partnership process, a new type of governance, that the smart specialization needs such a refreshing method, such a refreshing process. It's not a method. Okay, so together with Richard, we concluded that, as I mentioned already, we need to go back to basics, to the principles of why we are doing things instead of what we are doing. Turning policy making into the implementation mode. So remember, strategy design and implementation are one. Let's stop thinking that they are two different steps. No, they are one. And thinking with stakeholders. And I cannot stress this enough. The S3, the PRI, they are providing guidance about what to do. And they are somehow thinking instead of stakeholders. We need to think with stakeholders and manage two things. seamlessly involve the stakeholders with a process that works and creates a learning cycle. And then secondly, tapping into this wisdom, the wisdom of the professionals that have been working for decades in development. And partnership, as I said previous on one of the slides, they don't descend from the sky. It needs 5 years, 10 years to build partnerships. So they are already there. So we just need to put them to work as low possible to the grassroots. Does anybody imagine what this photo means? What's your guess? What is it? Close, yeah? No? Close? Sorry? No, it's the bubble. It's the bubble. It's a soap bubble. It's a soap bubble just after the moment when it was pinched with a nail, with a, yeah, it already exploded, but we still see, because it's the micro photography, we can still see it as it's yet there. Okay. And I find it a nice metaphor about the fact that in a millisecond, perhaps something that is irreversible happens, but we don't have any idea. Is it irreversible or did it happen? I think it's the same with our what we are living today on our planet. We don't know if the change that happened is irreversible. We don't know if we stand a chance to save what we have. And secondly, we don't know if this point of no return already happened. But we still believe we stand a chance. So and I think that really, by talking to each other, tapping into our experience, but not shying away from getting our hands dirty, we can discover new territories of the mind. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Raluca. If anyone has a question, please feel free to ask. And for those of you who are attending online, if you have any questions, as I wrote you in the chat window, please write them in the chat window. Okay? So any questions here in the room? Yeah, Raul has a question.
Yeah, I have a question. I think it was a great presentation. I think most of the things that were in the presentation, make me think about the way that all the thing has developed in regional development in the last decade in Europe and also the previous one. But I was wondering about the basics of how all of this thing was generated, because you mentioned the Blair speech and also the Lisbon strategy. But as far as I know, the Lisbon strategy was not really a successful strategy. So, and I also know that, this GRC center was also really problematic to have this kind of power, in the sense that they develop these indicators that are also filled by regions and that kind of things. So it's just a question and a comment, but are we doing or we need to reconsider all of this if it is the right way?
Well, answering such a question, well, it would take it's not even fair to say that we are able to answer such a question. But I would say that it's of course counterproductive to throw anything away. It's not about, and every step that took us here, it has a value in itself. Okay, so no, it's not about dropping anything, but it's about the fact that there is this very delicate segment because you have all the bottom, the top down, because these are top down. We always say they are bottom up, and so, yes, they are supposed to be bottom up on meaning on the way we work with these instruments. Yes, but they are top down instruments. So you have the top down, and then you have the bottom up, and the only way that you can solve anything is by talking to the smaller granulation of stakeholders in the territory. I mean, no matter how nice things are coming from top down, anyway, people are living here, and they need to manage their things here. And I'm thinking about yesterday, the first presentation that was from the lady from the university. She gave the example of these rural communities. The rural communities are the most bottom-up example that we can give. And you cannot explain to those people about smart specialization, and that's not the case. But you can explain to them about how they can do something together to change. And that will meet with smart specialization later on, because there is no incompatibility. But we need to care about the small, the micro and the small.
Thank you, Raluca.
Any other question? Because I have a question for you. Yeah, you have mentioned, it's not. You have mentioned a participatory decision-making tool or something like that that was going to be published in March. What kind of tool is that? Is a software platform? Is a document? Is a guide? What is it?
Well, actually, it's going to be the toolbook that will contain all the participatory processes that we design and that we collected from the history of good facilitation of strategies. So it's going to be a PDF, an interactive PDF. Yeah, and it will be open to the public.
Where will it be available?
It will be available on my company's website.
Okay.
And I will share the link
Great.
with you. Yes.